Second chances in Hollywood rarely happen, if ever. But this past week, Zack Snyder's Justice League debuted on HBO Max, and in this video we're going to be breaking it down as well as deciding, did it fix the hot mess that was the 2017 version? Let's find out. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Animated Apparel Company YouTube channel. I'm your resident superhero nerd, Aaron Waller, and today we are talking about, of course as you heard in the intro, Zack Snyder's Justice League. And by now there are hundreds, if not thousands, or even millions of other videos on Zack Snyder's Justice League on the internet already. But of course, here at Animated Apparel Company YouTube channel, we have the best info, the most solid info of all of it. So make sure you subscribe for more of it. But anyway, to be honest, it is a very hot topic, and rightfully it should be. Now, first and foremost, I have to be right up front with you guys. I love this movie. It was fantastic. I can't give much more praise to it. It fleshed out every single character, fixed so many of the problems from the original theatrical release, and it just felt like a whole new experience. Yes, it was a bit long, but it was totally worth every single second. There were a couple where it could have been cut a little bit, but it was totally worth the 4-hour runtime. It was extremely satisfying and even left plenty open in the event that were to be continued or revisited, though I'm kind of doubtful of a future despite how well it was been received so far. Zack Snyder's Justice League deserves to be in the upper echelon of superhero movies. I'm not saying it's perfect, nor the #1 superhero movie of all time, but it certainly was one of the most complete. There was action galore, the tone was consistent throughout, and it was a vision that fans petitioned and demanded for, and it was hands down a success. What I loved was just about everything. I can't go into every detail for this video or it would be the same length as the actual movie, but as I mentioned before, the characters were way better. It wasn't as campy. It felt over the top, but at the same time a lot more grounded than the 2017 cut. And despite interdimensional creatures wanting to take over the Earth, metahumans, and an abundant amount of CGI, the portrayal of these characters felt real to the world, that even the fantastical settings, I could see the emotional weight each character carried with them and the toll that it takes. Now, obviously I'm giving this movie some massively high praise. It did have its problems, and we're going to get to that in just a second, but I don't want to say anything that would be negative about it. These are more things that just left me in the middle of the road. And some of these things include the aspect ratio, the runtime, dark side, and the ending scenes. Now in terms of the aspect ratio, it was a 4:3 rather than a 16:9, which we normally get to be considered as like widescreen. So it's kind of cut off, kind of how you see like in Instagram videos sometimes, where it's just got like the black bars on the sides rather than on the top and the bottom. Now this actually didn't bother me too much, maybe for the first 5 minutes, but after that it quickly faded away. Think about it like the notch on your phone. If you have anything that's fairly recent, like an iPhone X or whatever, maybe newer, where it has that notch at the top, a lot of people were concerned about it, that's just going to be really bothersome and annoying to the eyes, but honestly it faded away probably within about 10 minutes, and the same kind of happened here. It's a 4-hour movie and those edges just sort of bleed away after a while, and I kind of just embraced it and enjoyed the movie for what it was. It certainly wasn't anything that hindered the movie in any way. I do wish it would have been the 16:9 just to get a full movie, full screen, but I still enjoyed it. Now for the runtime, as I mentioned before, it is a very daunting 4 hours, which can be hard to watch all in one sitting. I mean, sometimes it's hard to watch a 2-hour movie in one sitting. But this one, it felt pretty well paced. There wasn't anything that felt like it dragged on. It did have a very even pacing throughout. And even to benefit of the doubt of the movie, it did have 6 chapters where you could kind of stop and just sort of do whatever you needed to do, come back the next day, couple hours, whatever you want, take frequent breaks if you don't have the time to fully sit down for the 4-hour experience. I think you'll get more out of the 4-hour experience, but if you have the time, or just don't have the time rather, but it gives you the flexibility to watch it however you want rather than forcing you to sit down and watch. It doesn't have those same things where you have to pause it and you're concerned, is this the right moment to pause? Am I missing something? Am I in the middle of something? You can just pause at those moments and then come back to it later, and it works out just fine. Now, Steppenwolf is technically the big bad of the movie, but the actual overlord of it all, if you will, is Darkseid. And I didn't necessarily have a problem with him. I feel very much like I did about Jared Leto's Joker, which we'll talk about in a little while, who makes an appearance in this movie. I felt very much like Darkseid was that version of from Suicide Squad, that Joker, where I just didn't get enough of him in order to make a decision as to how I felt about him. Yes, I wish he was a little bit more involved in the action. We get to see his beams a couple of times, but it wasn't anything over the top. I wish we would have gotten more of him. But much like the early Thanos in the MCU, they kind of just were teasing us. It was supposed to be a larger thing later, but the fact that we even got him at all, I'm more stoked about that than anything. Now, the ending scenes is where things start to get the most interesting. Not that the rest of the movie wasn't interesting, but it's where things could have gone in the future. One of those endings is, in the original cut, Lex Luthor is out on a boat and Deathstroke arrives and they essentially form the League of Doom, or start the idea of the League of Doom. Now, in this version, that same scene still does play out, minus the League of Doom reference, but rather Lex Luthor gives Deathstroke some information, some very key information, that Batman is Bruce Wayne. Now, this drastically changes things and highly sets up what would have been Ben Affleck's solo Batman movie, which we unfortunately never got, but I think that that was probably even more fun and interesting than the League of Doom. Yes, the League of Doom is interesting, but considering that we only have 2 of those characters kind of set up even at that time, it just didn't have the same momentum. Whereas letting Deathstroke know Batman's true identity, that obviously leads to a lot bigger impact and a lot of other things that can get the ball rolling for future franchises such as Ben Affleck's Batman. There's also what I'm going to call the new Nightmare scene, where we see Batman, Cyborg, Flash, Mira, Deathstroke, and the Joker all sort of on the run or something along those lines in that sort of post-apocalyptic dark side ruled Earth. And he essentially has Superman as his guard dog, basically tracking them. To be honest, this ending scene was just sort of okay for me. It gave Leto another approach and his own second chance at the Clown Prince of Crime, but to be honest, even this version just didn't do it for me. He just couldn't quite get it right in Suicide Squad, he couldn't get it right in this one. I don't think he may have been the best person for the Joker in any regard. But could this potential future of DC movies and the story be cool? Absolutely. It reminded me of the Injustice comic, which I absolutely love, but I'm not sure exactly how it would have played out or been received in the long run, knowing that some of these characters were kind of on their last leg or never even got started. It was also a premonition from Batman, so it never truly happened, but they do introduce Martian Manhunter officially, despite a brief but unnecessary cameo earlier in the film. To make a long video longer, I adored this movie. I think it was totally worth the long wait, totally worth the long runtime, totally worth the obstacles that this movie had to overcome. It was definitely an action set piece, definitely a full vision realized. I much prefer a 4-hour super long cut rather than waiting 2 years for a part 1 and a part 2. I feel like it just has a lot more weight and can keep you engaged for a lot longer. You can enjoy it for longer and even down the road make your own sort of theories. Even though this is considered an Elseworlds more like story, this one is probably going to be one of my favorite superhero movies, possibly of all time. And before we close out this video, I honestly just want to thank all the fans for DC fans, comic book fans, Zach Snyder fans, whatever you want to call it, who even made this thing a possibility. Because I think a lot of us fans did see how mistreated the 2017 Justice League was. We could see there was a good movie in there, but for some reason, too many cooks in the kitchen, too many hands in the pot, whatever you want to call it, and it just sort of got muddled. And being able to have Zack Snyder come back after the tragedy with his daughter, to be able to make this movie for the fans, that he gets to have come to realization, that we get to have to come to realization, it's one of the greatest things ever. And being a superhero fan at this time, absolutely phenomenal. But anyway, enough off my soapbox here. But essentially that's all I have about Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now I want to hear from you guys. What did you think about it? Did you like it? Do you think it was worse than the other one? Do you think it was just too long? Did you get over the aspect ratio? Let me know what you think down in the comment section down below. And also while you're down there, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell notification so you don't miss out on any future videos from me or the rest of the AAC team, as we are posting videos on Mondays on any of that. And of course, don't forget to check out animeapparelcompany.com for all your awesome nerdy merch, Marvel, DC, anime, comic book, video game, you name it, we all have it there. And use the code Aaron20 so you can get 20% off your order and just save some money and get some more awesome stuff. But other than that, thank you guys so much for having me. I really do appreciate it and hope to see you in the next video.